Hi, it's Sarah Elder, and welcome to the briefing note. This is just a quick message to let you know that this is a previously unreleased episode and was recorded while the podcast was still called Elected. But don't worry, this is still a briefing note. You're just getting a somewhat vintage episode. So enjoy. Welcome to Elected, a podcast for women in and around Canadian politics and our active accomplices. I'm your host, Sarah Elder, and joining me in person today, which is always lovely, is Stephanie Clements. And if you don't know Stephanie, well, you're going to find out. But she is the president of the Calgary Public School Teachers, Local 38, of part of the Alberta Teachers Association. I'm getting it out, representing nearly 10,000 teachers. Before becoming the local president, you worked as a strategist with the Calgary Board of Education, supporting students with complex educational needs. And in your free time, you volunteer with a number of charitable organizations. And you enjoy spending time with your Boston Terriers, which we will definitely make time to chat about. Because I did a podcast yesterday and we ended it also by talking about our dogs.
As one should.
Of course. And their names are Helen and Hazel. Oh, I love it. I love matching names and human names for dogs.
I had a Trevor and a Benson before that.
Oh, really?
So, yes.
Okay. Well, we can chat about that more, but thank you for coming and chatting with me today.
Well, thanks for having me. I was super excited to get the ask and was listening to some of the other podcasts and the people that you chatted with and thought, oh my gosh, like what am I doing here? And I still ask myself that after 2 years of being Calgary Public Teachers President. And luckily I get 2 more years. So I was acclaimed. No one ran against me in this spring. And so I'm very, very lucky to continue the work for another 2 years.
So that brings you to 2026.
Yes, June 2026.
Then 2027 being an election year provincially. So have you already thought about running again?
It's interesting because I have been approached in the past. Like I can't run for my position as
there's a
term limit
okay.
2 terms. And the ask has been there by different parties about, would you be interested in running locally? And then I feel like,
we're running,
like
council,
like,
or
yeah.
something
So doing
else.
something after that. But as we hear from so many women who are in politics that, I'm at the end of that timeline where, I probably posted stupid things and someone's going to find it. And I just couldn't imagine, being called out for something, putting myself in that public sphere. Mm-hmm. I don't really feel like I'm public now because it's for just teachers.
Mm. Well, I mean, I'll share this. I haven't shared this on a podcast or publicly yet, but I'm considering putting myself into that space as well. And I have similar thoughts because there's a lot of material for someone to go through, right?
Well, yeah.
As someone who, like, thankfully I didn't grow up as a child on the internet, but as an adult on the internet, whoever would have to go through all of my things, that will take up a lot of time.
Agreed.
And also like the lens of, but I also don't, if a political party or someone is like, you know what, like, don't, you can't say this, or this is problematic. Honestly, I would walk away probably, because you're not seeing, my value is in me as an individual. And if you think that's a problem, then it's not the right fit.
Agreed. And I do think, thinking of the reality of the women in the past who have been, I think they get it worse than the men, and being called on for, posting something that, that, about pot or whatever, which, it's illegal. It's legal now. So, big deal. But that's something. But I think the bigger picture is I'm a teacher, and I wanted to be a teacher since I was 5 years old, and I teach students in special ed and students that have complex needs, and I miss that. I miss, like, as much as I love the work that I'm doing now, and I feel like it's really important, I do appreciate my principal friends who say, yeah, just come to the school, go hang out in kindergarten, come hang out in the in the class or whatever it is, and just like fill up my bucket, because I public education is those kids, and that's what that connection that makes me do what I do every day.
Well, and education is top of mind. I mean, it was in the last provincial election. I think it is always. And I think we're in the summer break right now, so I don't think it's as top of mind, but it will be once again when school starts.
And it's really tough trying to advocate for teachers to be able to do the best work for students, because it's really not about our working conditions or students' learning conditions.
Yeah.
And if they don't get, if teachers aren't given the skills, the toolbox, the resources, and the time and space to do the work that they need to do to make every student feel welcome and understood, then I mean, they're just hitting their head over and over again.
Yeah.
About that. Now, it's summer, but our current government has dropped a few notes. It's a Friday afternoon, midsummer, and they're letting us know that we're going to be testing everyone.
Yes, they have said that.
And that it just frustrates me, because
starting in kindergarten.
Yeah, kindergarten to grade 6. So currently, students in grade 3 get like their
standardized.
It basically, it's like a level setting. Where are you? How are you doing?
Right.
And then grade 6, they get the provincial achievement test.
Yeah.
And then grade 9, the provincial achievement test again. And then grade 12, the diploma exams, which have wavered in terms of how much they're work. And I do believe like there needs to be accountability, but why can't we do it like they do in Finland, where they randomize that here's a general view, not every single child in every single school, because we have students, especially in Calgary, where we've had 15,000 new students come through our doors, or expected to come through the doors by this September in the last 2 years. And those are students that are coming with English as an additional language. They're coming with exceptionalities. They're coming without knowing our curriculum, and then they're being tested to pieces. Now, I do think any teacher will do it already in their classroom. That's our job. We're professionals, and we go, okay, you are my group of children. I need to know your baseline. I need to know what can you do now. So then we create the goals to move you forward and to hit the whatever the outcomes that we should be doing. And when, if you test, so if I test you every year, well, it's kind of a pointless thing, because then it's also the data entry. Where's the test coming from? Is it actually been vetted as a good test, or just something that a friend of the government has come up with and said, this helps me with my educational programming in my university course, or whatever it is? The students, we're just over testing them, as opposed to trusting that you have teachers who already know what the students need and are reporting that to parents.
Well, can I tell you my frustration of my experience of my kids in school now?
Please.
Is that my children have been summed up as like, not as individuals and people, but as outputs.
A data point.
Yes. And it has made me really upset, to be frank, because it's taken away, it's made me, it's changed. I mean, and maybe it's me and how I process it, and how being their mom, and I'm so close to them and I love them so much, right? But it's also made me see them differently, which is something that I'm trying to, not, think about, but, it's made them into like, they're not just my beautiful children who are going to, go on in life and do different things, but it's made me think about them in ways like they're just not, they're just not as competitive, for example, or they don't test as well in this area. And I just know, and it's made them into, it's been dehumanizing for me. Does that make sense?
It's tough for the kids too, because kids want to do well. They want to please their teacher, please their parents. They want to, hold themselves accountable. And you put so much pressure on a test, and some people don't test well at all.
Well, and that's the thing. And also with a son with a late birthday, in August this month, There's a big difference actually, now that I know, between a January birthday and like a summer or later birthday, like
Well,
developmentally.
6 months difference in age at that young group. Like your brain isn't ready. The brain isn't at the same place
It's
as the kids from
yes,
the January birth.
exactly, exactly. And so those factors are not taken into consideration. And someone will be like, you're a granola mom or like whatever, right? Because you're like touchy feely and it's not about the individual, it's thinking about them in this different way. And okay, that's fine. But I don't want my child just to be, a number on a test. And I want, honestly, when we think about Scandinavia, for example, or wherever, like they're not thinking about children simply as, future people in the labor market, right? They're thinking of them as whole individuals and what that looks like. And you cannot capture that in a standardized test.
And the teachers who are in the classrooms trying their best to reach every student and to support them, which has been super hard when you don't have the physical space to
Right.
put them in, and you've got classes of 43 and just all of the things that are making it harder and harder to do a job that's already hard.
Yeah.
And then now you have to take away time from actually teaching the skills and then to test them. And like kindergarten should really not be about testing. Kindergarten should be about play, learning how to school,
Yeah.
how to follow,
how to be around other kids,
yes,
norms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, and I represent teachers in the CBE, and our kindergarten teachers are all trained for a very appropriate test that is throughout the year, that they test this 2 times, and it's really just like an assessment, as teachers assess all the time. But this one, where are their base skills? Do they know the alphabet? Do they know their numbers? Do they have concepts of adding, etc.? And then what to focus on. That's what teachers do all the time. And so, but then we already do that in our particular school board, and I don't know what it looks like in other school boards, but now you have a government who is saying, nope, flat out, everyone has to do this. And so it's going to be one more thing. And what you don't want to give teachers is one more thing, because while everyone who's been in school can say, well, that's easy, I know what it's like to be in school, don't think about the fact that, for those 6 hours that the teachers are in front of kids in the day is just half of the job. For every hour you're in front of kids, it's another hour prepping and assessing and reporting. And there's so much data collection, and this just adds to it. But I like to look at things comparing in a different way. And a really smart guy I know made a comment that, if this was in healthcare, and if you had an assessment and it said, okay, you know what, we're doing a screening and you have cancer. And so instead of treating the cancer and going through a treatment and providing the resources to deal with the cancer, I'm going to test you 32 more times to tell you still have cancer. How is that appropriate? I'm going to test you for cancer, but then I'm not going to provide any treatment or any resources to help you. Well, you know what? Test them, but then let's see the time.
Well, and that was what was missing from the announcement around the additional testing, was anything around resources to support what is identified in the test. So yeah, collect the data, great. But what are you going to do with it? Right. And that's what I want to see. I want to see more money tied to supporting students,
but appropriate money. So I was really lucky. My political action chair, MJ Eagleson, who's a rock star, and I got a chance to meet with our Minister of Education for a quick meeting online, and so happy he's actually my representative. And so I was speaking as someone who is a proponent of education, but also someone who lives in his constituency, and talking about funding and talking about like appropriate resources for education. And the response was, well, we pay $1.4 billion to the Calgary Board of Education, and plus an additional 85 million. And so, we're providing money. And I said, but hold up, because $1.4 billion is the budget because we have so many students, but you're still not giving each student as much money as you would if they were in Saskatchewan or another province.
Right.
And then that additional $85 million pays about 20% for each additional student that showed up after the count date. But it's the same as me saying, Sarah, you know what? I want you to take your family out for dinner. Here's $20. Go have a healthy meal. And then me getting upset when you come back and say, I can't do it. I don't have enough.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be able to eat, so my kids can. Like when you compare it and look at it different ways, $85 million sounds like a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
That would run our school board for about 2 weeks. Full stop.
Yeah.
Then there's no more teacher pay. There's no more buildings running.
Yeah.
So it's all that scale. Now they did just also another announcement this summer as a government that we're getting some more modulars. They call them now portable classrooms.
Yeah.
The CBE,
because they don't want to call them. We don't want to call them portables anymore because people know what portables are. So
Yeah.
modular sounds a little bit more.
It totally does. So that they announced, no, the CBE, I do think they do great work in looking at, okay, here's our numbers, here's our needs, here's our, we're so full. And they put in a request for 69 or 70 these modular portable classrooms or to permission to move them. And they were given 12. So that's clearly not enough. And so now there's more. Now we're getting more. I don't know what it is for us in the announcement. I'm guessing we're still not getting our original request for 69 or 70.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, but like, thank you for the modular portable classrooms. But here's an idea. Let's build some new schools.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly,
in the areas where the kids live.
Yeah. Well, and also not only build new schools, but I want to see more money and capital to upgrade schools. And I know that the UCP is dead set on acknowledging anything related to COVID and that it is an airborne disease, but and also on the topic of climate change, right? But so we are experiencing more extreme weather and our classrooms are not adequately equipped, in my opinion, for those weather events. So air conditioning for the extreme cold. Because having grown up in BC where we actually had snow days, like that just is not a thing here for some strange reason.
No.
So kids still go to school when it's minus 40, right? But then also ventilation and, how well, how clean is the air that our students are breathing, right? All of these different things, like what are the facilities? What are the, so the numbers are a talking point. What are kids actually going to school and experiencing?
The other piece is, we talk about class sizes, which means hiring more teachers.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it becomes this argument that, you can do what you need to do with the right number of classes. The problem is teachers don't have enough time in the day. So as someone who's done a lot of work in students with complex needs,
right.
I had a kiddo in my class who had some extreme behavior due to various reasons. And I, had been at that time teaching these kids for 15 years. And I remember standing in my hallway crying because I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, how is it that I don't know what to do? And we have teachers who face these things every day because it's just overwhelming. And that as soon as you're overwhelmed because you've got 40 kids or you've got, of those 40 kids, 6 of them don't understand what you're saying because they're new to Canada. They're refugees. And you've got another 7 who have individual program planning because they have a learning disability or they have, or they're gifted or they're there's all, ADHD. And then you're then said, okay, well, teach them all. And here's your limited time and what you must teach them. And, oh, by the way, here's a new curriculum. And good luck. And then, oh, wait, here's the next new curriculum this year. So science is starting. And I mean, teachers are used to getting new curriculum. They change a grade. They need to be prepared to teach it. But when you give it to them all at once, it's like that movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And teachers are going, nope, I'm out. See you later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, in any profession, if someone is overwhelmed, overworked, undervalued, I would say, right? And we're seeing the same with doctors and nurses and in our healthcare system. I think it's, the same in the education system and, good people are leaving and maybe even leaving earlier, right? Because they're opting for just an early retirement. But again, and to your point earlier on, all of these things affect teachers, but they also affect students, right? And as parents, with anyone with a child in the education system in Alberta, this, if your child is not given the most optimal learning conditions, right, then you should have a problem, in my opinion, with the, or not a problem, but you should have concerns about the environment that your child is going to every day, because it will ultimately impact their learning and, finding them out about themselves and exploring careers and thinking about themselves as a person growing up, and what they want to pursue in post-secondary, or what they don't want to pursue in post-secondary, if they want to learn a trade, right? Like all of these things, like no one would want to go and sit in a really bad office for a day.
Exactly.
Right? We wouldn't put up with that as an adult. Why would we want that for our students, for our children?
Yeah, if you ran an office of engineers,
yeah,
and you said, okay, there's 20 of you, there's only 14 seats.
Exactly.
And sorry that the air conditioning isn't working today, so we'll just crack open this window. I'm sorry that it's smoky. And then the government, your organizer says that you need to, do these three things at the same time. Go. And they'd be like, well, I'm out. I'm going to go other places.
Yeah.
Because it's not conducive of the work. And it's not, I mean, if I was a student and I know that, individually and on small scales, that we have amazing, there's 251 schools in Calgary Public, Board of Education, Calgary Public. And, those are led by amazing professionals who are really trying.
Yeah.
And,
who care about kids.
Love kids. But it's hard when they don't have the tools to work with.
Yeah.
And even going back to what I was saying about giving time, I know there's been a big talk in the government's push about understanding mental health and in adolescence, and because it's a huge issue, and being online for 2 years, or being in a pandemic didn't help. And so students don't have the resilience. The kids these days, I know that makes me sound like an old person, but like they don't, how they get those problem solving skills, and how they get that understanding about who they are and how they interact with others. It's through play. It's through not being.
It's not on a computer.
It's not on a computer. It's in a space where they're given the parameters to go and say, okay, you know what? It's recess time. Go out and play. I'm not organizing you. I'm not telling you where you need to be or what you're doing. Just go and make up your own rules of the game and do this. And kids aren't given time to do that, because you have to do all these other curriculum things, and you're not getting a chance to be in music as much. And well, and especially we've really struggled in Alberta and Canada and now the world to have enough educators in the schools. And so when you're burnt out and you're sick, because I think that, once you put more, you keep putting things on people and then add that one more thing and give them a cold, they're out. And not finding people to necessarily replace them, having enough guest teachers or substitute teachers to come in and do the job. And, and for kids who, they like routine and they want to know what to expect. And you've got a new person in front of you the next day, like that doesn't make it easy either for kids. And so just this constant struggle. And I think, I think this might be the time when, we're realizing that not only, 80% of our profession is women, 75 to 80% are women in the profession, as has it been for, over 100 years. And who's taking on the childcare, who's taking on the elder care, who's, responsible for that emotional work of home, tends to be, not all the time, but tends to be the female. And so it's so much. And I think we're seeing more people. I haven't seen the data, but I'm pretty sure there's more illness, more sick leave, more people on leave. And we say stress leave, but there's no stress leave. Like, it's just medical leave.
Which, well, I mean, also show me a woman today who's not on some kind of antidepressant.
Oh, 100%.
Right. Like I'm sure the data is there too, and we don't talk about it. I mean, I'm on one, but, like I'm sure that with the pandemic too, that also went up, right?
And so just basically trying to hold on to everything. And
it's too many balls.
Yeah.
Too many balls.
We're not very good at juggling.
No. And honestly, I don't think we should have to be. And I think that, the role of government in my mind is to be there to support people and families and citizens And, you know, I see a lot of cracks, but it's easy to talk about the cracks. What I want to hear more of from the government is solutions, like going back to, you know, um, you know, rolling out plans and announcements, but like what goes along with it. But we could spend, I think, a long time talking about all of this.
Hours.
You also wanted to talk about something, the history of your position and how few women have been in it.
Yes, and I think that, you know, as I look at the amazing items for sale in your store, and I know that how often it is, you know, men who are in the positions that we see in leadership, and whether it's your, you know, your C-suite or whatever, but in public education and in our professional association, the Alberta Teachers Association in Calgary Public Teachers, Local 38 has been, you know, a going concern since 1939. And in those 85 years, I'm only the fifth woman to hold this elected position. And which blows my mind. I had one of my staff make a visual for it, because you see that, you know, 75 to 80% of our teachers are women, but so few women have stepped. And I never wanted the position. It wasn't something that I had, you know, schemed for, or it came to me about a month before nominations were coming out, and I said, I think, and Andrew Finley and I have really come along the ATA together. We've been vice presidents together. We've really fought to to support our teachers, and that's really the big picture. Is like, how do we represent our members? How do we know that they're heard? And when you get close to 10,000 of anyone, that, I mean, that's hard to do. But I remember having a conversation with him saying, Andrew, I think it needs to be a woman. Like, I think I need to put my name in. And I had to convince myself. And it was a narrow victory. But it was a victory. And I think it's amazing. I get to work with the president for Calgary Catholic Teachers, Alison McCaffrey, and what an amazing place to be the collaborative, to come together to how can we benefit teachers?
Having met like Allison too, I love all of you. Like, you're all very, very strong leaders.
I'm very excited that as of the spring, the 5 largest teachers locals in the province. And we've got about 46,000 teachers in the province. And the big 4, we often say, is Edmonton Public, Edmonton Catholic, Calgary Public, Calgary Catholic, Calgary Public being the biggest. And then Rocky View is our, as I like to call them, Rocky View is our hat. If you're interested, Foothills Local is our pants, and around Calgary. And there are 5 women now in those positions. So the 5 largest locals in the province have women at the helm. And I'm just so proud of that. And it was only 2 years ago, for the first time ever in our 85-year history, is that not only the president female, but the 2 VPs female. And so that never happened before.
Well, and to your point around, you know, such a high percentage of, an overwhelming percentage of the percentage of teachers being female, and then historically being led by men, right? Like, you know, like, the representation should look like the membership of whatever it is, right? Like, there should,
agreed.
It should, you know, that's just, you know, tell me why, right? That is the default.
And then it's taken this long to get that way.
Yes.
Where, you know, in looking at the books and the studies, that, you know, we need to be convinced, and we assume that we don't have all of the skills, or we don't have what it takes.
That's the patriarchy at work, right?
Well, and so how do we boost each other up? It's listening to podcasts like this, and coming together and connecting, and you know, I always say, fake it till you make it. But I guess I have to realize, actually, you know what, I think I am doing a good job. And I'm excited to get to do it for 2 more years.
Well, yesterday I recorded a podcast with a really incredible counselor from the region of Waterloo, who has who's in a wheelchair, and she is the first person on their council to have a physical disability like that. a visible physical disability. And we were talking, and she shared a story about another woman in politics in Waterloo who was, they had coffee, and she said, you know, like, you know, oh, I'll help you on your campaign. And the response was, no, I think you should run. Right. Like, sure, help me. Great. But like that, the idea, and it gives me like, like I get goosebumps thinking about it. But the idea of us taking the hand of someone else, another woman, right? And not being like, you're my competition. Right. And they weren't running for the same position, but just let's bring someone along with us. Right. Like let's that ladder of, because like the ideas of scarcity, and there can only be so many of us because there hasn't been enough positions, and all of these different things, like, seeing it at the Olympics, like Simone Biles, like, bowing down to the woman from Brazil who won, right? Like it doesn't, like, sure, she wanted to win. That doesn't mean we don't celebrate, the people who do, right? Like we've got to make more room for ourselves.
Yes, and not make it about competition.
Exactly.
And to how do we promote each other with exactly.
And just like means that you don't win and someone else does, like it's still a win, right? It's not a personal win, but it's a win for women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we're all trying.
Excellent. I see the opportunities as well. What I call it the shoulder tap, and that it's when you call out to someone else and recognize them for what they're doing. Because again, so often we don't realize that we are doing the things we are representing. We do have the skills that we may not see others, and we don't tell each other that enough. And so I think, one of the things that I have been trying to do for anyone who has, put their name forward for a committee position on, we have 22 committees in our local, all run by teachers who are working full time. So, I'm the one lucky one that gets to get, seconded so I can go and participate in all 22 of those committees and to see what's happening in our schools. But to be able to tap and let people know. And that's, teachers do it all the time to students to say, what, I see you, I see you being kind, I see your empathy, I see your, you've got a skill in that. And we,
so meaningful.
we do it with the kids, and we don't do it to the adults in our world to call them out in a good way. So I think that's my message to, how do we tap those shoulders?
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming and chatting today.
Well, thank you.
I'd love to have you back to talk about in a post-September lens.
For sure.
Because I think we're going to see more things. Obviously, there's a fall sitting of the legislature, and we'll see what else rolls out and impacts teachers and students in Alberta. But we need to do more, and we need to do better, I think, for our kids.
I agreed 100%, because public education, if you don't provide it, there goes democracy, there goes communities. So it is really important to do.
Well, someone today, even, I'll just say that, so I got back from vacation and I saw someone this morning, and I was like, oh, I need a vacation from my vacation, and he was like, why? And I was like, it's just, going on vacation with kids is not truly cannot be always the most relaxing thing. And he was like, well, you chose it. I was like, well, yes, I did. I am also supporting the future of humanity. And it's like people that, that line that people choose to have kids. Well, a world without kids won't be a world for much longer.
Well, exactly.
So we need to invest in them. Yeah.
Truly. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was lovely to chat.
Yeah, you too.